Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Oxier, and welcome to the Leadership Resilience in Uncertain Times webinar. Thank you for being here today. I'm always honored when people carve time out of their busy schedules to have a conversation or to sit in on a learning opportunity about leadership, particularly leadership in rural healthcare. And I'm very pleased today. Shannon Calhoun will be assisting me in this presentation. So welcome, Shannon. Good to see you. So the content that we want to talk about today is leadership resilience in uncertain times. Has anybody noticed that we're living in uncertain times these days? I think we all have. And so it's vitally important to have resilience. And so the content that this presentation is based on is from an article written by the American Psychological Association named Building Resilience. And I'm glad to offer you this link where you can find the article that we're basing, that this presentation is based on. So when we think about resilience, well, what is it? Leadership resilience. And so I have my own definition. My definition of leadership resilience is bouncing back from a tough situation. And then when you bounce back, you're actually stronger than you were before. All right. So that's Bill's definition, but that won't get you very far in life sometimes. So it's good to look up other definitions as well. So some of the, when we look at the American Psychological Association's definition of resilience, they define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, and significant sources of stress. Now, they didn't bullet point the definition like I've done here, but when I read their definition of resilience, I thought, holy cow, adversity. Who's going through adversity right now? Well, yes, we can check that one off the list. We're going through adversity. What about trauma? Check, we're going through trauma right now. What about tragedy? Yes, tragedy is apparent in this pandemic world. Threats, significant sources of stress. Holy cow, we are living through the ideal definition of what resilience is because we are facing all these situations dealing with this pandemic. So how are you adapting? Adapting well, and are you building to be stronger when all this is over? Now, when we think about resilience, it's great to have a definition, whether it's my definition or the American Psychological Association's definition, but it's also important to think about what is resilience not? It's not something, it's not a personality trait, okay? Research has shown that resilience can be learned. You can grow in resilience. So resilience is something that we can grow from. It doesn't mean, if you're a resilient person, it doesn't mean you're not going to have difficulties when you face a stressful situation. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. What it does mean is that you can learn and grow. And resilience, as I said, it can be taught, it can be learned, but it does take time. It's more of a marathon versus a sprint. And when we look at resilience more closely, and what it is behavior. Resilience is behavior, because how we respond to all those stressful situations or the difficult times and everything is demonstrated through our behavior. It's also about how we frame our thoughts around particular situations. You know, I'm sure we all know somebody who sees the dark side of everything. They're a negative thinker, okay? But you can also turn that into positive thinking. So how you frame your thoughts has a big impact on resilience. And then as leaders, how we lead by example, our actions, that definitely impacts resilience. So if you want to improve your resilience, working on your behavior, how you frame your thoughts, and the actions that you take can definitely have an impact. So there's four ways to build leadership resilience. And as we get into that, one thing I want to ask though is what is the difference? What's special about leadership resilience? Because everybody has resilience no matter what, but as a leader, you really set the tone for your organization. As a leader, you're the rock that everyone clings to during a crisis situation. As a leader, you lead by example. Whether that's a good example or a bad example is up to you. And that's why it's so important as leaders that we work on our resilience, that we grow our ability to be resilient, especially in times like the ones we're living in today. So there's four ways to build leadership resilience, and those are connectivity, wellness, balance and purpose, and positivity. And I'll go over connectivity and wellness, and then Shannon, she's going to go over balance and purpose as well as positivity. So when we think about connectivity, what do I mean by that? Well, it's easy when you work in rural healthcare, just in the good times. It's easy to feel isolated, right? And when you have a difficult situation like a COVID-19 pandemic facing you, it's easy to isolate because of all the stress. And isolation is one of the last things you want to do. You need to be connected, and you need to prioritize relationships that you have with other people, whether that's co-workers, peers in different geographic areas, family, friends. You need to prioritize the relationships that you already have, and you need to seek out new relationships. And you need to build those relationships, try to get stronger, whether there's by Zoom like we're using today and has become a very common technology under this pandemic, or other networking opportunities. You need people and to connect with people who are empathetic, who are understanding, who can validate your feelings and understand what you're going through. They need to be trustworthy. They need to be compassionate so they can support you during these difficult times. So those are the type of people that you need to seek out that you already have a network of those kind of people in your life already, I'm guessing, but strengthen those. That will help build your resilience. It'll help build their resilience because it's a two-way street here. They need you to be empathetic. They need you to be understanding and compassionate and trustworthy too. So the more we can embrace those qualities and seek out those qualities in other people and prioritize those relationships through connectivity, we can build our resilience. And so we all of us need to go out of our way to connect with others. And so that might be participating in webinars like this. I'm planning on doing these webinars once a month, so this is one way to come together. And in the future, I'd like to do maybe some breakout rooms and that sort of thing to help with greater connectivity for people from totally different geographic areas, but have a common theme of purpose in rural healthcare leadership. So connectivity, one of the cornerstones of building resilience as a leader. Now let's change over to talk about wellness. If you've been on a commercial airline flight, they always go through the safety presentation of what you need to do in case of an emergency. And they always talk about the masks dropping down from the ceiling in the flight. And what do they always tell you? They always tell you to put your mask on first before you help others. With the COVID-19 virus, we always have to make sure that the healthcare workers have the appropriate protective equipment so that they don't catch the virus themselves. So we have to take care of ourselves first before we can serve others, and to serve others, because if we pass out or we get sick, we can't serve anyone. So we have to take care of ourselves first, and that includes our body. So, we have to work out, we have to eat right. When you think about it, when you're dealing with stress in particular, stress is just as much physical as it is emotional. So we have to prepare our bodies to deal with that. And so whether that's a matter of working out or getting a good sleep, whatever, take care of your body. We also need to practice mindfulness, whether that's prayer, meditation. Some people like to journal, um, thinking about things that you're grateful for. Practice mindfulness, practice mindfulness. And then we also, we don't like to talk about this very much, but part of wellness is avoiding negative outlets, when we're stressed out or not sure what to do. For some people that's alcohol, for some people that's drugs, for some people that's emotional eating, for some people that's smoking. I mean, we all deal with stress in different ways, and it's important to avoid negative outlets to that, and instead try to focus on giving your body the resources it needs to manage stress, because stress is just as much physical as it is emotional. So the overall theme here being wellness is one of those 4 cornerstones of building resilience. And so from here, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon to continue the conversation.
Thanks, Bill, and hello, everyone. I'm happy that you're able to join, and unfortunately in this situation that we're in now, but hopefully we can help talk about building a foundation of resilience. Part of this resilience is that you don't just bounce back, but the time in which you're able to recognize and then become able to adapt well to the situation. So each of these areas that we're talking about gives you the ability to build a foundation, and that foundation spreads not only with you, but all your team around you. So certainly all of you have a purpose. Rural healthcare leaders have a built-in purpose, but perhaps in this time when we're having so much change, you have the opportunity to refocus your purpose with a little balance on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that happens in this adverse time is that things that we were able to do sort of on remote control maybe don't work so well. Just for instance, you probably park in a certain place and go on your door of your hospital on a regular basis. You might not be doing that today. There may have been a change of the way that you enter into your facility. Other things that you do in communicating with people have changed. And so this requires a time of balancing that purpose on a daily basis, becoming a little bit self-aware, and think about it in the context of having resiliency, because again, your resiliency will spread. One of the things that you could think about in your balance of purpose is, how can I help those people around me just in my actions daily? Not necessarily talking to them or creating a new plan, but sort of creating that space that shows your confidence of being able to bounce back. Another thought in creating this balance in your daily purpose is, what goal can I set for today and for tomorrow? What am I in control of? And that can translate not only to your workplace, but in your personal relationships and in your self-care. So think just in not big leaps of work that you have to do in order to get resilient, but just on a daily check-in. What can I do today? What's in my control? And that gives you a strong foundation to stand on to manage those things that are not in your control. And then how can you achieve those goals? So you figure out what the goals are, you separate sort of that what's in my control and what it's not, and then be able to build something around that, again, on a daily basis, just even small things. And one of the other important things in creating balance is learning daily how you react, what's a trigger, and that requires that self-awareness, that's bringing it down a little slower on a daily basis, and sort of paying attention to your own reaction as well as the reactions around you. These steps will help you strengthen that foundation that we're talking about on building balance and purpose. So let's talk about positivity now. one of the important things is that you look towards the glass half full instead of the glass half empty. If we have the opportunity to think, how will my reaction affect those others around me in a positive way? Again, you have the ability to control your own resilience, create that foundation, but spread that as well, just by creating the consciousness of your reaction. And then again, what is changing and what is the same? Having the ability to find positivity in the change. Maybe some of the change might have a good outcome. So start looking for that silver lining. Is there one in an opportunity that brings positivity to not only you, but those around you? And finally, remember a time excuse me, that you actually found strength in change, in adversity, and draw on what that was. So having the ability to find strength in purpose and positivity gives you the ability to create a space of hope for you and the people around you.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
So simple concepts, but like most things in life, simple concepts are simple, but they ain't easy to do. But 4 ways that Sharon and I have shared with you to build your resilience are all about connectivity. They're all about wellness. They're all about balance and purpose. And they're all about positivity. So some powerful ways that you can build resilience in these times. And it's important to, I talked about earlier about, it's easy to become isolated, to feel like you're on an island, even though there's people all around you. So it's important for you to get help to help you build your resilience. Because if we think about, again, some of the things that make up resilience is your behavior, the way you frame things up in your mind, the way you think about them, and then the way you take action. And so you can get help for that. Now, for some people, if you know someone who is struggling, perhaps yourself or others, if depression is set in, or you think they have some behavioral issues that are really coming to light in spite of this, because that's happening for some people, it's important to get the proper help that you need with a qualified therapist, a behavioral specialist. So that's one avenue. But if mental health is not an issue, depression is not an issue, but you're wanting to move forward, an executive coach can really be helpful. Because the difference between a therapist and an executive coach is, a therapist looks at the past, trying to diagnose the root of behavioral issues, whereas an executive coach is always looking to the future on how you can improve and perform better, to help you accomplish that. And when you look at what a certified executive coach can do for you, well, the number one thing is build resilience, okay? Building resilience by going through these things, connectivity, wellness, balance and purpose and all those things. But an executive coach can help you reduce stress, gain greater clarity and focus, increase your confidence, accountability, help you generate better ideas, and help you make better decisions. So that's what an executive coach can do for you. And so a concept that I want to share with you today is that I've asked some certified executive coaches to create the resilience coaching team. And it's myself, it's Shannon who's here on the call with us, it's Elise, and all of us are certified executive coaches. We have a couple other certified coaches in the wings if we need them, because what we want to do for you to support you through this pandemic is to support you by free executive coaching. So all you have to do to schedule a session with any of us is go to billoxier.com/coaching, and you'll see a profile for each of us and a link where you can schedule a free 30-minute coaching session. So that's how we want to support you in this pandemic, the best way that we can, by helping you build resilience. But enough about us. I want to go back to you, our listeners. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big chance here and press the unmute button. And
More
if you,
cases, more people will quarantine, but once we get that,
somebody,
the incident command to have people trace.
so I remuted again. So you can raise your hand if you go to the participant page. If you have a question, we'd love, Shannon and I would like to field some questions from you. Any questions you have about resilience and building resilience, or anything else for that matter, where we may, if we are not experts on the topic, we'll have to pass, but if we can answer your question, we will. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, please raise your hand. All right, I'm going to take another chance and unmute everyone so you can speak up instead of raising hands. So everyone is unmuted now, so please be cognizant of that. And so be free to speak up. Does anybody have a question?
Bill, this is Jason Blake from Battle Mountain General Hospital.
Hey, Jason.
I've got a question regarding holding people accountable during stressful times. When we're trying to allow people to bounce back and allow ourselves to bounce back as leaders, what's the best way to hold people accountable for mistakes they've made or things that they have done wrong during these hard, stressful times and still allow them to be resilient?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. Accountability, I mean, that's a common question regardless of whether it's stressful times or not, right? So, yeah, so may I ask what you've been doing in that regard?
During most stressful times, I tend to slow play the accountability and maybe hold off for a day or two so that the heat of the moment dies down a little bit. Maybe not strike while the iron is hot, but maybe while it's still warm. I have found some success with that, but I've also found some employees that have gone the opposite direction during those.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know, everybody's different, right? And I can certainly appreciate what you've tried. And I mean, if I were in your shoes, that's one of the things I would try, because everybody's trying their hardest, right? And it's stressful. And if they're not getting things done that they need to get done, you know, if you can be more patient than perhaps normal, that's always a good thing. But I mean, in a pandemic, particularly, accountability is highly important as well, right? I mean, you and I were just talking about quality on Monday, right? So you cannot compromise quality. So, I mean, it depends on the situation and it depends on the person, I guess, which isn't a solid little nice answer that you can tie up with a bow. But I think it does depend on the person and the situation, because on some things you can't compromise, on other things you can be more flexible and take more time. So it all depends. So I'm sorry I'm not giving you a better answer than that, but that's what I think. But if anybody else has another opinion, if you'd speak up, that'd be awesome. Shannon, do you have any thoughts on that?
You know, maybe this is a place where change isn't always great. Giving the consideration of a person of the situation is great, but holding fast to a principle might be a more comfortable place for staff rather than letting it go too long. So I think that, you know, figuring out how that ties into making sure that person is resilient, how would you manage that? I think would be a really important consideration. Elise, do you have something?
Thank you. I was thinking that one of the things that can be really beneficial in a situation like this is transparency. You know, I can hear in your voice that you're struggling. Jason is.
Yes.
The question, yeah, that Jason is, you know, struggling, balancing. We're in the middle of this pandemic. Everybody is being stretched to the limit, working under difficult situations, and yet we need to have accountability. And so one thing I might suggest is that you actually are transparent with the person that you need to have the conversation with, of saying, you know, we need to have a conversation. I need to address this with you. I'm very mindful of the fact that we've got a lot of things going on, and the last thing I want to do is heap more pressure on. However, we do need to talk about this. Is this a good moment, or would tomorrow be better? Or whatever you can negotiate around, but just letting people know that you're aware of the pressure that they're under, but that standards do have to be upheld, and give them a little bit of choice, and that can sometimes reduce the pressure.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everyone. And thanks for the question, Jason. Who else has a question for us?
Hey, Bill, this is Kate Hill. How are you?
Hey, Kate, fine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And that last question kind of went to mine. With everyone working at home, some people are not so inclined to work so hard and
Yes.
taking it sort of as oh, good, we're home. Let's do puzzles or something.
Right.
And that's a challenge that not everybody, I'm an older generation, so we don't kind of look at things like that. It's very hard for me to accept other people's laid back attitude, let's say. This is great. We're so busy, it's crazy. And so, ironically, in this time, there's so
Yes.
much to be done. Any thoughts on how to move them along a little? They are being paid.
Well, I first of all, I want to say thank you, Kate, for spearheading. You said you're so busy, but I know you've spearheaded a lot of people to volunteer to sew masks for healthcare workers. So that's pretty awesome. So thank you for that. I'm going to defer to Elise on this one. Elise, can you address Kate's question?
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Lise.
One of the things that kind of leaps to my mind is, have you been clear with your expectations?
Absolutely. It's still a 40-hour work week. Yes.
Okay. And even underneath that, a little bit more granular of, here's what needs to be accomplished. We're in a different situation. Tell me about your plan to get these done by Wednesday or whatever it is.
Got it. Okay. I have not done that. Probably necessary. I'm not built that way. I just assume to get it done,
Yeah,
So I will do that.
Yeah, I think that if we can, just like we're all trying to expand our bandwidth around working with 3-year-olds pulling at our legs and doing different things.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm in that generation with you of, if somebody told me to do something, I would do it. But that's not how everybody responds to these kinds of challenges. And I think that opening the door around, here's my expectations, and how you're going to go about it, as long as it's done and to the acceptable standards, there's some ability for you to change that, but here's what I need. So how can we get that done by this time period? Tell me the plan. How can I?
Got it. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Elise. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Becky Sanders from the Indiana Rural Health Association.
Hi, Becky.
Hi. Thanks for holding this today. So my question, kind of going back to making sure you're making time for yourself, is all about time management. And in an age where leaders are trying to constantly feed themselves as well as feed others, how do you make time to feed yourself?
Oh, that's a great question, and something we all struggle with at certain times. I know I certainly do. And so actually, Elise is the one who taught me this, to block time that is sacred time. So for example, actually putting it on your calendar, whatever you need to use that time for to take care of yourself, to put it on your calendar and block that time out, and don't compromise on that. Okay, there might be sometimes you need to compromise, but you have to have some rigidity there to take care of yourself. So that's how I would respond to that question. But Shannon, Elise, either one of you have something else you want to say to that?
You might not be able to squeeze in all the time that would really make a lot of what you would normally do, like an hour here or there, but even if you just take a moment to ground yourself in the morning, connect with what you're trying to accomplish each day, you know, what's important to you, just frame it in the morning and frame it in the evening, checking in even 5 minutes during the day. If you can find a couple of places that go back to your foundation of resiliency, then that should help you get to the point where you do have some time to spend in feeding yourself. It's, you know, when you're doing, if you're in exceptionally long hours, I know some people have a lot of change in their hospital and some people have almost no change. So depending on where you are, if you have time to be outside, get sunshine, just a little bit of focusing inward to yourself, frame it in the morning and the evening, you should have ability to find that resiliency through the period until you can really treat yourself well.
Is that helpful, Becky?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Can I pick up on one more thing on that, just to amplify what Shannon just said?
Yes.
If the goal is to have some self-care time, right? And of course, we'd like to have an hour or half an hour, whatever. But just what Shannon just said is so important. If when life intrudes on the best laid plans, you can still do a facsimile of your goal, then you can do the inner talk with yourself of saying, you know, I couldn't do that half an hour today, or I couldn't get to the gym, but I still did the goal to the best of my ability. I took that walk, or I did these things. So you still feel like you're making progress on your goals. You've had to adapt them for the environment that you're in, but the momentum stays the same.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Elise.
that's helpful, Elise. I think I'll self-identify myself as a type A person, and I think most leaders are. And it's hard. We beat up on ourselves an awful lot.
Yes.
Yes, and that's so true. And people in healthcare tend to be very giving. And I was coaching a healthcare person this morning, and we ended up by identifying that she overcommits. And she blocks, we talked about blocking time for herself and then defending it like a knight with a saber out in front. No, that's my time. But she ends up saying yes, and when she really doesn't want to. So the solution we came up with together was she's going to go walk to the store today, buy some sticky notes and a marker, come home and write the word no on the sticky note and put it on her computer, so that when people are challenging her time, she's going to either say, you know, I have 5 minutes right now. If we can accomplish it in 5 minutes, that's great. Otherwise, I'm going to need to have you reschedule for next week, or simply say, no, I can't do it now. And just getting comfortable with doing that is the big challenge.
That's great. Thank you, Elise. All right. Well, folks, I can't believe our 30 minutes has flown by here. And I told you it'd be a 30-minute webinar, so I want to keep to my word here. If you had a question that you weren't able to ask to fit in here, email it to me at bill@billoxier.com, and myself and Elise and Shannon, one of us will get back to you. So thank you so much. Be safe, stay negative, and be healthy. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.